In the annals of ancient lore, where myth and history intertwine like threads in a grand tapestry, few figures loom as large or cast as tragic a shadow as Samson. His name, synonymous with Herculean strength, echoes through millennia, a testament to a power so profound it seemed divine. Born under a sacred vow, set apart for a divine purpose, Samson was Israel's unlikely champion against the oppressive Philistines. His story is one of spectacular feats, of riddles and revenge, of a man blessed with unparalleled physical might yet cursed with a glaring, deeply human vulnerability. It is a narrative that explores the intoxicating allure of power, the subtle corrosion of temptation, and the devastating consequences of misplaced trust. At its heart, however, it is a love story, albeit a twisted and treacherous one. The story of Samson and Delilah, where the strongest man on earth found his undoing not in the might of armies, but in the whispered words and deceptive embrace of a woman who became the instrument of his downfall. This is the chronicle of a hero's meteoric rise and his equally dramatic, self-inflicted plummet, a timeless warning about the frailties that lie beneath even the most formidable exteriors. Long before Samson's birth, the Israelites groaned under the yoke of Philistine domination. It was into this era of despair that an angel of the Lord appeared to the barren wife of Manoah, a man from the tribe of Dan. The prophecy was clear: she would bear a son, a Nazirite from birth, consecrated to God. He was to drink no wine or strong drink, eat nothing unclean, and no razor was ever to touch his head, for his hair was the visible symbol of his vow and the conduit of his extraordinary strength. Samson grew and the Lord blessed him. The Spirit of the Lord began to stir him, and tales of his prodigious power soon spread like wildfire. As a young man journeying to Timnah to take a Philistine wife, a decision that already hinted at his fatal weakness for foreign women, he encountered a young lion roaring against him. With the Spirit of the Lord rushing upon him, Samson tore the lion apart with his bare hands as one might tear a young goat. This was but the first taste of the might that resided within him. His wedding feast turned into a contest of wits when he posed a riddle to his Philistine companions. When they couldn't solve it, they threatened his new wife, who cajoled the answer from Samson and betrayed him. Enraged, Samson, empowered by the Spirit, struck down 30 Philistines to pay off the debt. His relationship with his first wife ended in tragedy and further fueled his animosity toward the Philistines. Later, when the Philistines burned his wife and her father, Samson exacted a terrible revenge, striking them hip and thigh with a great blow. The Philistines, fearful and furious, demanded the men of Judah hand Samson over. 3,000 Judeans, reluctant but cowed, went to bind their champion. Samson agreed, on the condition they would not kill him themselves. Bound with 2 new ropes, he was brought to the Philistines, who shouted in triumph. But as they approached, the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon Samson once more. The ropes on his arms became like flax that had caught fire, and his bonds melted off his hands. Finding a fresh jawbone of a donkey, he seized it and struck down 1,000 Philistines. Such was his might that a single man, armed with nothing but bone, could decimate an army. He carried off the city gates of Gaza, posts, bar, and all, on his shoulders to a hilltop, a feat that mocked his enemies and solidified his legendary status. For years, Samson judged Israel, a lone force of nature holding the Philistine threat at bay. Yet his strength was always shadowed by his passions, and it was in the valley of Sorek that he met the woman who would seal his fate, Delilah. Her name, perhaps meaning dainty or delicate, belied the steel in her resolve and the treachery in her heart. Whether she felt any genuine affection for Samson is lost to history, but the Philistine lords saw in her their ultimate weapon. They approached Delilah with a tantalizing offer. Entice him and find out where his great strength lies, and by what means we may overpower him, that we may bind him to humble him, and we will each give you 1,100 pieces of silver. It was a fortune, a king's ransom, and Delilah, perhaps driven by greed, patriotism, or a combination of both, agreed. Thus began a deadly game of seduction and deception. Delilah, with all her feminine wiles, began to probe. Please tell me where your great strength lies and how you might be bound, that one could subdue you. Samson, perhaps toying with her, perhaps already partially ensnared, gave her a false answer. "If they bind me with 7 fresh bowstrings that have not been dried, then I shall become weak and be like any other man." Delilah procured the bowstrings. While Samson slept, she had Philistine men lie in wait in an inner chamber. Then she cried out, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson!" He awoke and snapped the bowstrings as a thread of tow snaps when it touches fire. His secret remained safe. Undeterred, Delilah pouted, accusing him of mockery. "You have mocked me and told me lies. Please tell me how you might be bound." Samson, perhaps enjoying the attention, perhaps growing careless, offered another fabrication. "If they bind me with new ropes that have never been used, then I shall become weak and be like any other man." Again, Delilah acquired new ropes, bound him as he slept, and sounded the alarm. "The Philistines are upon you, Samson!" And again he snapped the ropes from his arms like a thread. Delilah's frustration mounted. Her voice, once honeyed, now carried a sharper edge. "Until now you have mocked me and told me lies. Tell me how you might be bound." Samson, seemingly still in control, offered a more elaborate but still false solution. "If you weave the 7 locks of my head with the web of the loom and fasten it with the pin, then I shall become weak and be like any other man." While he slept, Delilah painstakingly wove his long Nazarite locks into the loom and secured it with a pin. "The Philistines are upon you, Samson!" she cried. He awoke and pulled up the pin of the loom and the web with it, his strength undiminished. Delilah was now beyond mere frustration. She was relentless. Her final assault was not on his physical bonds, but on his emotional endurance. "How can you say, 'I love you,' when your heart is not with me?" she pressed day after day. "You have mocked me these 3 times, and you have not told me where your great strength lies." Her words were a constant drip, eroding his resolve. She pressed him hard with her words daily and urged him, so that his soul was vexed to death. The strongest man in the world, who could face down lions and armies, found himself unable to withstand the persistent emotional onslaught of one woman. Exhausted, weary, and perhaps tragically believing her protestations of love, Samson finally yielded. He poured out his heart, revealing the sacred vow that was the bedrock of his existence. "A razor has never come upon my head, for I have been a Nazirite to God from my mother's womb. If my head is shaved, then my strength will leave me, and I shall become weak and be like any other man." Delilah knew with chilling certainty that this time he had told her the truth. She sent word to the Philistine lords, "Come up again, for he has told me all his heart." They came, silver in hand, their anticipation palpable. She lulled Samson to sleep on her lap, a tender gesture masking a monstrous betrayal. Then she called for a man to shave off the 7 locks of his head. As the last lock fell, his strength began to drain away. She began to torment him, and then cried out the fateful words one last time. "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." He awoke, intending to shake himself free as before, for he did not know that the Lord had departed from him. But this time, there was no surge of divine power. The ropes held. His legendary strength was gone, shorn away with his hair. The Philistines seized him with triumphant glee. Their most feared enemy was now helpless. In a brutal act of vengeance, and to ensure he could never threaten them again, they gouged out his eyes. Blinded, broken, and utterly humiliated, Samson, the erstwhile champion of Israel, was bound with bronze fetters and taken to Gaza. There, in the prison, the man who once carried the city gates on his shoulders was forced to grind grain like an animal, an object of mockery and a stark symbol of fallen might. In the darkness of his prison, both literal and metaphorical, Samson had time to reflect. The taunts of his captors, the weight of his chains, and the unending labor were a constant reminder of his folly. Yet as the days turned into weeks and months, something else began to happen. His hair began to grow again. With it, perhaps, grew a seed of repentance, a flicker of his former connection to God. The Philistine lords, exultant in their victory, decided to hold a great festival to honor their god Dagon, to whom they attributed Samson's capture. "Our God has given our enemy into our hand, the ravager of our country who has killed many of us," they proclaimed. The temple was packed, with thousands on the roof and within its walls, all eager to see the once mighty Samson paraded and mocked. They brought him out, blind and stumbling, to entertain the jubilant crowd. Positioned between the two central pillars that supported the temple roof, Samson, amidst the jeers and laughter, spoke to the young servant guiding him. "Let me feel the pillars on which the house rests, that I may lean against them." Then in the depths of his despair, Samson prayed a final, desperate prayer to the Lord. "O Lord God, please remember me, and please strengthen me only this once. O God, though that I may be avenged on the Philistines for my two eyes." Placing his hands on the two central pillars, one with his right hand and the other with his left, Samson braced himself. With a final, earth-shattering cry, "Let me die with the Philistines!" He pushed with all his resurgent might. The pillars groaned, then buckled. The massive stone roof, laden with thousands of revelers, crashed downwards in a deafening roar of destruction, dust, and death. In that single cataclysmic moment, Samson brought down the temple, killing more Philistines in his death than he had in his entire tumultuous life. He died alongside his enemies, a tragic hero who, even in his fall, fulfilled a measure of his divine purpose. The saga of Samson and Delilah endures not merely as a tale of superhuman strength or a cautionary fable about the perils of desire. It is a profound exploration of human nature itself, where divine gifts coexist with profound flaws. Samson's strength was legendary, but his judgment was tragically fallible, his passions untamed. Delilah, whether a calculating agent of her people or a woman swayed by immense wealth, became the catalyst for his undoing, her name forever linked with betrayal. The story serves as a stark reminder that true strength is not solely physical. It encompasses wisdom, self-control, and discernment. Samson's physical power could not protect him from the vulnerabilities of his own heart. His fall was not instantaneous, but a gradual erosion of his Nazirite vow, culminating in the ultimate betrayal of his sacred secret. Yet even in his final, devastating act, there is a glimmer of redemption, a return to his God, and a fulfillment, however costly, of his destiny to strike a blow against Israel's oppressors. The echoes of that collapsing temple still resonate, teaching us that even the mightiest can be brought low by their weaknesses, and that the deepest betrayals often come cloaked in the guise of affection. Samson's life, a brilliant, flawed, and ultimately tragic epic, remains a powerful testament to the complex interplay of power, passion, and purpose.